So it was my 5th pregnancy and really had an uneventful pregnancy. It had been kind of good and smooth sailing. Brandon went hunting. We sent him off with my dad and brother-in-law, and they had a good time. And we thought, it's fine, you can go, we're not worried. My mom came that afternoon because she was helping me with the kids, and it was a Friday. I was just here working and started feeling bad, and I had chest pain and back pain and felt a little nauseous.
Well, she was laying on the couch, which she never sits on the couch. She never sits. She's always so busy. So I thought, something's not right. So I prompted her to call the doctor.
You did. And you were persistent too.
I was
Even when
very
I was like,
persistent.
It's fine, Mom. It's
I was
totally
annoying
fine.
persistent.
Yeah. So was resting kind of in the back, praying and just trying to figure out what was going on. Called the doctor, the on-call.
So Annamaria wanted to drive herself, and I said, no, absolutely not. I will take you.
I wasn't wanting to put anybody out. I didn't want to put Brandon out on his hunting trip. I wasn't wanting to put you out.
In the middle of the night on Friday night around 2 a.m., I got a phone call from my partner, Dr. Patel. He says, James, there's a pregnant woman in the emergency department who came in with chest pain, and she has some blood tests and EKG findings that are suggestive that she's having a heart attack. The question they posed to me was, should we take her for an emergency C-section to deliver the baby, or should we take her to the cardiac cath lab to determine if there's a blockage in her artery? And I had just awakened from sleep, and I did some really quick risk calculation in my mind.
They were really hard conversations. It was things as a physician that you never want to actually have to have that conversation with the patient. Who can we save? Can we save mom? Can we save baby? And how can we save both?
I wanted to scream, what are you talking about? Of course we save the baby and we save the mom.
I said, deliver the baby, take the baby out of there so we can do whatever we need to do when we get to the cardiac cath lab.
We're taking you for emergency C-section first. We're going to get the baby out. We think that'll relieve the stress on your body. I called Brandon. He got in the car within 5 minutes of that call and was driving. He had to drive all night. He was up in North Texas. All the medical team has gone on, and I've got nurses with me getting ready to take me out. You have Brandon on the phone. So I remember
I was
talking
holding the
with
phone
him.
up to
Yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah.
He was praying over you.
He was
and
praying over me.
Talking with you.
It's my OB-GYN is amazing. She came back in when they had kind of decided on the right clinical path, and came back in and sat with me and said, okay, here's what we're doing. Okay, now let's talk about it. How are you feeling? And I said, well, I'm a little scared. And I said, well, actually, I'm a lot scared. I wasn't afraid of dying. I mean, I feel very confident in my salvation. I knew where I would be going. There wasn't fear for that, but I have 4 kids. I had this 5th one that I knew was ready to go, a husband that I want to continue to love and support. And I was just breathing in oxygen and asking Jesus for mercy.
The OB actually, to her credit, performed a very, very fast C-section. I mean, she made record time.
And then all of a sudden I hear in the waiting room, the cardio waiting room, I hear this, yeah. And I'm like, oh, baby. Oh my gosh, that's the baby. And so all of a sudden these silver doors open and the nurses are standing there with a big smile on their face. And we look down and there's baby Charlotte.
Right after that, they took her from the OB emergency room to the operating room very, very quickly. We were already with a table and with the equipment to do the coronary angiogram. Before her case, I definitely stopped and said a prayer over the case. Even though every single life is important and we do everything possible to save every single patient, understanding that this patient was a new mother with 5 children was especially weighing on me. So we started the procedure and went up through her right arm with a catheter and advanced that catheter to the coronary arteries and took pictures. And when you see a pregnant woman come in with a heart attack, the most common cause of that is a rare disorder called spontaneous coronary artery dissection, or SCAD for short. In this particular issue, the teaching from our professional societies is to walk away, and 90% of these will heal on their own. You actually are not supposed to stent this because stenting is actually very risky and can even make things worse. After I took the pictures, I was about ready to remove the catheter from the arm, and typically there's no resistance at all. It just comes right out. In this case, the catheter was stuck. I pulled on the catheter and the catheter would not budge. So I was gently applying slow traction to the catheter and took a long, long time being very gentle to get this catheter removed from her artery. At that point, I thought, oh no, I caused trauma from the catheter by removing it, even as careful as I was being. So in that situation, you need the expertise of a vascular surgeon, and I knew exactly who I wanted to call. It was Dr. Kihani. I wanted to give him an early wake-up call.
And it's around 5:30 or so in the morning, and I'm barely answering the phone, just barely waking up, and I'm driving in, initially thinking it's probably nothing major going on. One of the nurses calls and says, hey, she's actually a physician that works here. I'm like, okay, well, no pressure like James says here. I usually just go and get the OR ready to go so we don't waste time. For some reason, in this situation, I decided just not to do that and actually go in and see what's going on before I decided to mobilize and get the surgical team in. As I walk into the room, I come out and I look at the name. I'm like, wow, is this Annamaria? And so I look at her last name, it is, and I'm like, wow, I know she was due to deliver, but not yet. The first thing I did was just kind of step back, take a quick prayer, and ask God for his guidance, for his will, and guidance for her and her family. Luckily enough, she didn't have any injury to the arm.
And it turns out that the artery was just clenched down very hard on the catheter. And after some time, when the pressure waveform returned on that arm and the flow returned down the arm, I just, thank you, Lord.
Yeah, for
That was
sure.
one more thing that we just really didn't need for her that night.
Less thing, yeah. I think I made a comment, something of that, like, was it like, James, was this the issue we were having, or something comical, just to kind of ease up the stress that was there. I think God's hands are so strong in this whole situation. It's putting James into the picture, putting me into the picture, putting all these different people into this rare condition that you barely ever see.
I wake up in the ICU. Brandon is there, which was wonderful. And then he is able to show me pictures of the kids meeting Charlotte.
There was a lot of discussion about wanting to send her home because it looked like she had made it through the highest risk period. I actually went back to the medical literature to review the known information about this diagnosis. One article says you watch them 3 to 5 days. Another article I read said watch them a week. And I said, okay, we're going to do a week, because there is a small percentage, around 10%, that actually can, after a few days, the tear that started when they arrived at the hospital can actually spiral down. There's just a voice saying, we need to watch her longer. Not yet. We need to watch her a little bit longer.
And that was huge for me because 6 days from the kind of original event, the dissection ended up getting worse.
I actually had given her husband, Brandon, my cell phone, and I heard my phone ring and saw his name pop up and answered the call. And he said, she's having terrible chest pain that just started instantaneously.
So I leave, and within 3, maybe 4 minutes of getting ready to rest at home, there's a text and it says pray with big caps and exclamation marks. So of course I get up and go back to the hospital.
At the time, I'm just having intense chest pain and back pain like I had before.
Annamaria is very stoic and very brave, and was not going to be walking on eggshells looking over her shoulder. And I knew that if she was complaining of severe pain, that something very serious was going on. And I picked up the phone and I called one of the cardiac surgeons. I said, Bob, what are you doing right now? I need an operating room open, and we have a patient who's critical, who needs to go for emergency surgery. And I said, hey, I know you might not be able to do anything here. Take a look at the films and see if you think this is something you could do. And he looked at the films and he said, I can do it.
And then my sweet OB-GYN appeared again. She just kept, out of nowhere, she coordinates to have Brandon be able to come and give me kisses as they're taking me back to the OR. I'm getting wheeled back, and I say goodbye to Brandon, and Kihani shows up out of nowhere again, and then he is holding my hand as they're wheeling me into the OR, and just brushing my head like this. It was just so comforting.
I prayed with her, but just seeing her, how calm she is, I don't know if I could be in the same shoes and have the same demeanor like she had. They
rushed her down to the operating room, and he performed that surgery just flawlessly. He did an outstanding job. And if she had been at home for that, she might have made it to the hospital, right. But she might have not. She might have not.
A lot of people probably would have looked at that case and said, there's not much I could do. But for him to have the knowledge base to say, yeah, we're going to do something to get her off the table safely and give her a life. It just really shows me, and it's made my faith stronger, of how God's will is so strong out there. And sometimes we rely on our own will, but ultimately we fall back and have to fall back and say, this is really God's way and God's will.
I did not personally know Annamaria, and she did not know me at the beginning of this case. As soon as I knew that she was a member of this body and of this community. We were instantly brothers and sisters in Christ.
You know, you don't have to go through the struggles of life by yourself, that there's always your church family and support that's there.
I guess I've just been through enough stuff in my life where I've learned that God really does have a plan and he's in control. And I knew he had her and she's his child, and you have to surrender your kids eventually because they're his children. They're just on loan to us.
One of my boys drew me a picture, and it's a heart with a rainbow, which I love the rainbow and the way that it reminds us of God's faithfulness. And so it's not like I was telling Wesley what I was processing or anything, but he just draws me this picture, and it's like literally a heart with the rainbow. So just the Lord encouraging me, like, well, I've been faithful to you in all of, you know, these other seasons in your life, and I'm faithful still, and I'm faithful in the care for your physical heart, not just emotional. And so all the prayers that people have offered on our behalf have been so amazing and encouraging.